Welcome, everybody.
Well, Jennifer, in the Dave Cooper live chair.
Don't tell him. Don't tell him I hijacked the show.
Well, I hope you're listening, Dave, because we're so excited. PHIUS Friday Live has a great topic today.
Every Friday. I mean, every Friday is 1 week better than the next. And I am just so thrilled to have the opportunity to be here with you today, Mark, especially with the special guest we have coming in.
You know, it's kind of like the months of planning and then the 2 years of doing the show together to have this topic when everyone's going into my favorite season of all, construction season, right?
Oh, I thought you were going to say fishing season.
No, it's construction season. There's no time to get that pole out. So for all the folks that tune in weekly, this is the first episode in 2 years that Dave has missed. And he's missed for the right reasons. He's with friends and family fishing, right? And so, Dave, whatever you catch, you got to mount it and you got to bring it on the show next week.
Yeah, it's definitely a special week, and Dave normally doesn't miss any of these shows, but believe it or not, Mark, this is the first time he is taking the next generation on this annual trip.
So you have Colton with Dave, or the girls, or
everyone? He's got our young lad. He's got Colton and his cousin, who's 4 days younger than Colton. So the two of them are who knows what they're all up to. Let's just say that.
Right. And well, Colton, you're learning your dad's footsteps of being the mayor of the camp, right? You've got the seniority flag. So with great power comes great responsibility, young man.
Absolutely. And just like they're cultivating the next generation over there, I'm so excited about this conversation coming up today, because that's what we're doing too. We're inspiring that next generation to get involved, show them how much fun we're having, how easy it is to get involved and really make a difference.
Right. There's a career path out there. We're going to hear all about it. So, Jennifer, there's a couple platforms that we're on today, right?
There are. Do you want to list them off for us?
So we have Facebook, we have Twitter, which I'm not sure what that is, Twitch, because Greg Ugaldi tells us to follow Twitch, and we do. Then, of course, LinkedIn and YouTube. And on YouTube, you can watch thousands of hours, maybe tens of thousands of hours of all the episodes from Dave Cooper Live, as well as BS Friday Live. And we hope you click that like and enjoy.
Perfect. And it looks like we are definitely live over on that platform. We have Mr. Greg Ugaldi tuning in. Thank you for joining us again and cheering us on. It is always great to hear our message out there and really landing.
I have a hint for everyone. If you noticed Greg's tie, and if you notice the Dave Cooper Live background, you'll notice this wonderful blue color. And in today's episode of BS Friday Live, we'll be talking more about how that blue is coming to life.
Shall we get into it, Mark? Shall we get started?
Yeah, let's roll a special surprise intro here of someone that's taken the PHIUS programs and just loves it. Roll that tape, Jennifer.
Let's bring her in. So let's see if this is working. Here we go.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for asking me to kick off this Building Science Friday. It's an honor to introduce today's guest, Katrin Klingenberg. She's the 2007 co-founder and longtime executive director of the Passive House Institute US, or PHIUS. For me and many, she's also the original ambassador of Zero Energy Building. And after discovering how Passive House worked and had an affiliation with the Department of Energy, I first had the pleasure to meet Katrin in May of 2012 in Boston on day one of a PHIUS CPHC training she kicked off. So today, PHIUS has a dedicated team and a massive following of building scientists ready to share the path to zero and build a better future. So Mark, have fun talking about the Developers Summit and the new website with Katrin today. And Katrin, thank you for the years of research, for tunneling through cost barriers and smoothing the path to zero as more people certify through PHIUS.
Welcome, Katrin.
That was great. That was a great welcome. Thanks.
I love that, smoothing the path to zero.
I know, that is just like, that was some slick kind of expressing that right there.
Oh my goodness. Well, Shannon is pretty much a powerhouse herself. So when she shares those words, she means them.
Well, that's great.
You know, it's so special when you have, obviously we promote the shows in advance, and we get messages about the show before the show happens. And sometimes that light bulb goes off. And here it's someone referring to 10 years ago when they're involved in in-depth trainings and trying to move their career forward, they meet you, right? And you welcome them into this family, and you help pass on those skills, and now they're sharing it forward. So I thought it was perfect to have someone that met you 10 years ago introduce you today.
No, I totally agree, and it's just absolutely phenomenal to see how much the community has grown. And as you're saying, like, everybody is paying it forward, and without that, everybody picking up the ball, we wouldn't be able to do what we set out to do, and that is make this grow in an exponential fashion. Like, often people ask me, like, so why did you set out to do this? It's like nothing short of, like, I want this to be mainstream, and not just US, but everywhere and everything. And I'm talking building science principles. This is just like good construction practice sense, and there's really no reason to do it any other different way. So we're there, and it's super exciting. It's super exciting to see people like taking it and running with it and building their own careers and businesses around it, becoming their own powerhouse, as you said, Jennifer, in their own right, on the accelerator, and in their own practice. So it's really something.
Terrific. So before we dive into all of this, can you share a little bit more behind the scenes and just what brought you down this path, what inspired you to get here, and maybe share some nuggets that might inspire others to also follow in your footsteps? We'd love to learn about your background and what got you to where you are today.
Yeah, so I started out as a young and 13-year-old alternative, I don't know how you would call this, like in school back in Germany. They started us off real early with sustainability and like simple stuff like recycling and stuff, things like that. So I was already kind of like on board with all that, like building a better world, like better environment, healthy planet, healthy people, fair, safe, all of that. And that was really dear to my heart. And when I was later in school, university, the what's called the Earth Summit came along in 1992, I believe, in Rio de Janeiro, and that was really a pivotal experience for me. We already knew all the things that we're talking about now, the climate crisis. It was already on people's minds, and they were already working on solutions to mitigate the climate crisis, right? And how to mitigate the climate crisis. We knew how to do it then. And the Agenda 21 was written, and that laid out the path forward for a healthy, safe climate. And so I decided whatever I was going to do with my life, I was going to jump in on that. And as an architect then later, I decided, I want to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. So I quit my job at some point. I was working like standard kind of career pathway for big name firms here in Chicago. I was working for Murphy Yawn at the time. Giant glass buildings that were trying to be good, but they weren't really that good. I mean, it's really hard to make those things really, really good. So to meet the carbon reduction requirements that our buildings really should meet. So in 2000, I quit my job and I decided to start my own business and to promote passive building and passive house and passive building because at the time it was clear that was the only strategy that made buildings meet those reduction goals that we had to meet to create a safe and just climate future for everyone on the planet. So that's how all that came along. And then I built my own house in Champaign-Urbana, and that was the Seed Crystal.
And you put those practices to good use. You really saw where it all comes together.
Yep, and ever since then, I've been a one-trick pony. Just some people call it nicely, like I have a North Star, but every once in a while it feels like very narrow. But I think if you want to make a big impact, maybe that focus is really necessary. Otherwise, you get distracted and you won't get to where you need to go. So yeah, it has been a quite amazing journey since 2002 when we first broke ground on the Smith House in Champaign-Urbana.
Wow, 20 years later.
Yep.
Yeah. What a success to look at the 20 years and to look on the horizon of everything that's coming. Right.
Mm-hmm. So, when we first started, that was one house. Like, Mark, you probably remember this growth curve that we kept drawing over the years. And that's the one thing that I'm still a little miffed about, is like, I thought it was such a great idea. It would like fly like nothing, right? So, but then we were watching these houses, like one house in 2002, like another house in like 2005, another one 2006, 7, like by 2009 we had maybe 10. I was really frustrated with the progress. This should have gone way faster, but like the political scenario in the US is not an easy one to crack, the way our energy codes work and all that kind of stuff, and how the building sector actually divides like the quality assurance and all that. We had a whole bunch of lessons to learn. And in addition to that, we also had to learn the lessons of like one size does not fit all. We had to like create strategies for different climates. And then right after that, after we did that,
that's a big one right there, right?
Yeah.
No, it really helped. And
most people would have stopped
oh my God,
there.
Cost is important because people immediately push back. Like, what you're telling us to do this? And it's like ridiculously expensive. So yeah, there's reality to it. So then we went back to the drawing board and we looked at costs. How can we bake cost optimization into the standards? So by that time we had climate specific standards and also had cost optimization baked into it. And then at that point it started to take off. And people were like, oh, I can do this much easier with a bigger building. Mark, you were mentioning this earlier. Like now we have like all size buildings, commercial buildings, like skyscrapers, because people started to realize, wow, like good on a single family home, but even better when you get the economy of scale. And at that point, it really started to take off, because for multifamily buildings, bigger like mass buildings, it's relatively easy to hit the stringent targets and to hit our like energy efficiency goals. And that's where all the growth is. And at that point, we learned again, like standards are really important. They need to be specific by building size. Because once you have a big building, it is internal load dominated. And all of a sudden, heating is no longer, that was the initial thing, right? We were all like obsessing over heating load. All of a sudden, we're learning that even in a cold climate, a big building is actually almost behaving like as if it was built in like a very hot climate, like in Arizona, because it's internal load driven. All of a sudden the cooling loads become the leveling principle that you have to design against. So there was really a very, very detailed kind of like evolution of like understanding the technology of quality assurance, of optimization in different climates, of standards, how they can be used as a technology as well, in addition to all the good stuff that we need to put in place on site, all the airtightness and the continuous insulation, efficient systems, heat recovery, ventilation, balanced ventilation, all that good stuff, right? So all this started to really congeal in the last see, I was trying to turn this guy off. Sorry about that. And
that's somebody calling to register for the Developer Summit.
No, I think so. We pulled the plug on the old website yesterday. So everybody's calling and they want to know, like, where did the website go? It's like it should have automatically all switched over. Anyway, so I'm just like kind of mind streaming here, but you get the point. We have come a long way, and it's finally taken off. We've gotten into a whole bunch of codes, and we're now finally seeing the exponential growth curve that I had envisioned in 2002.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I mean, there's so many places we could take this conversation right now, and we're definitely going to show the new website because it looks amazing. But probably a lesson that you may have learned in developing that new website is something that many followers of PHIUS are probably discovering themselves, at least on the first project. How important is planning? How important is design? How important is coming up with that plan up front to incorporate all of those systems that you were describing?
Yeah, it's key. So essentially, we have a whole bunch of like training programs that work on creating those skills by profession. So when you talk about planning as like the core starting point for taking project from zero to success, this is where the designer and the architect comes in. And we have a training program that's called the Certified PHIUS Consultant, the CPHC, PHIUS Certified Consultant. And so that person really becomes kind of like the point person for the entire team, because that person is running the modeling tool that incorporates all the different design methodologies and quality assurance, control points and milestones. And so that CPHC will calculate the energy consumption for the building, will tell the builder what the components are that need to go into the building, what the quality of airtightness layers has to be in terms of like permeability in different climates. So we get into some pretty nitty-gritty building science here pretty quickly. And that tool becomes essentially kind of like the central organizing and managing tool for the entire design process. And everything that follows, the construction and the commissioning after occupancy, everything is checked back against this tool. So you get the idea that if that tool is not correct, if the assumptions are not correct, then once you get through the entire process, your building might not perform the way you had predicted. So for us, it's really super important to always go back, get feedback from our consultants as well, because they learn. Like, we all learn from each other. We need that feedback loop to make sure that we keep updating our tool that is so critical for everybody's role. And then once the designer, architect, engineer, could be consultant, CPHC as well, once they are done with their design, then the PHIUS office actually design certifies it. And then it goes into the construction phase. So at that point, either a rater, specially trained, or a verifier comes into play. And they, again, they take the centerpiece organizing tool of the model, of the energy model, and they go on site and they make sure that everything that the designer specified is actually also put in place. And then they test. There's some pretty extensive testing. Measuring too, like any kind of like system that goes in, we want to know actually what kind of wattage it is, what is it really consuming, so that we can check that back against what the assumptions were made in the energy model. And then last but not least, we measure how does the building perform. And so really great data now, after we already pointed to that, like long 10-year plus history, we have excellent data that shows that our tool is super accurate. We're also starting to have actually really excellent cost data now. There are 2 large-scale competitions that have been running in Massachusetts and in New York. And the data that's coming out of those is, so third party, right? They are collecting the cost data. It's not us telling people how great we are. It's independent. And so all the cost data that has come out of those competitions is about like 1 to 3% for larger scale multifamily. And that leads us to the Developer Summit. Why is that so important to do right now? Well, because we feel over the last 10 years, we really have laid the groundwork for the technology. This is a no-brainer now. It's almost becoming like second nature. And that's also expressed in our rebranding, like PHIUS, the word, no longer the acronym. We're much broader now. We're going beyond passive. We're clear focus on like, we're going to get to zero, and we're using this as the means to get there. So Developer Summit, we need you, we need the developers to come on board and understand this business case that we have been able to demonstrate in these 2 large-scale competitions in Massachusetts and in New York. And that is the most exciting thing that's happening right now to me. And this is why we decided to take it to the people and try to bring in the real estate industry. And they have traditionally been kind of like off to the side. But now it's really time to communicate that value to them and to their clientele.
And the timing is perfect, because that is what society is calling for. They're calling for assurance that their investment is going to do something for them, that it's going to protect the people with, let's face it, air quality is a huge word, right? Comfort is a huge word, because we were defensive as a culture to the shortcomings of our buildings and to the shortcomings of how we did them. We always progressed, right? We're not living in the side of a mountain. We've always progressed. But that performance is what those developers could say, our buildings will work this way. We have the data, we have the modeling, we have the testing, we have the verifying, we have third party, as you said. It's one of my favorite words because it's an exciting party, and it's ongoing commissioned. You actually know when something's going on in your building by a little sensor letting them know that that is off. Something happened, and you could react before there's a problem.
Exactly. And you can assure your revenue stream, right? So let's like take a step back and try to make this business case for the developer. And this is like really, really, really exciting. So initially we started with the envelope, and everybody was like, can we really do this for like an okay investment amount? Can we make that back? And if you only invest in efficiency, you get an efficient building, but it's really hard to get those investments back out of it. Like, what do? Like in affordable housing, you can't even charge people more money per apartment because you're limited. In market rate, people are less willing to take the risk, so they're nibbling right now. But turns out that in the market rate development, people are definitely willing to pay, like, let's say $50 more per apartment. And what people don't realize is, like, if that's the case, people realize, like, wow, I can reduce my carbon footprint. I have a super healthy home, great indoor air quality, and I'm comfortable. It's super quiet. It's this like luxurious public luxury. I call this. So it's just. I mean, being in one of those apartments is just like outrageously awesome. So people pay for that easily, $50 extra. What the developers have not been realizing is like, but at 1 to 3% additional cost, let's say for like a 50-unit building, your building immediately is evaluated. It has a higher value because people are willing to pay more money. So the shell case is already made. We're done.
Right.
So, and we have this Massachusetts and New York State like proof of concept, right? So here's where it gets really exciting. And this is where we get into the energy transition. You guys might remember this book, like Jeremy Rifkin, our keynote speaker from our like 2019 Washington, D.C. conference. He rocked the house. And basically what he, not literally, and basically the proposition that he had was, what if you, developer, now you become an energy producer on top of your development? So he mentions the energy model of the ESCO, the energy services company. So our envelope gets us already 60% savings. If we can turn this into like, if we can pass that value of energy onto the tenant, we can make money back from it, right? Like instead of them paying the utility, they're now paying me as the micro utility, as the developer. So now the developer can go ahead and even add a renewable system, because the building is so efficient, the renewable system is affordable and it fits on the roof up to 4 stories, no problem. And add a little bit of efficient storage. You're easily overproducing. Electrify, have like electric charging stations. Overproduction goes into the cloud. We're done. So the building basically becomes a passive building, not a regular building. Regular building can't do that. But right. The passive building becomes a critical part of the new energy infrastructure if we want to make the energy transition work. And with all of it comes out, it's so exciting. Energy democracy, energy independence, resilience of the grid, like microgrids on a block level. You can. I mean, this is just like I'm getting goosebumps. But and at that point, the ESCOs, they get really nice cash flow back. And here's the best of it all: like with Amory Levinson's word, natural capitalism. He has always said this has to be sold and carried by private capital. And I really believe if and when we can make this case to developers, and this is why the Developer Summit is so critical right now, private capital, once they understand this business model, floodgates open. It'll become standard in no time.
Well, that's just it. And then, you're no longer an acronym. You're just a word, you're just a brand.
You're synonymous. Yeah.
Right. And my sense is too, the towns, the cities, the counties, the states, it feels like all of them would want this as well, to develop this relationship for their communities. Think about, healthier homes, healthier families, healthier residences, and what that does, to the external services, healthcare providers, visits to the emergency room.
Well, it's quality of life. So if we pause for a second and think about the alternative, we have to put ourselves back in the thing that we're defensively blocking. So if we've been in a multi-unit building, or we've been in a dormitory, or we've been in a hotel, a high-rise, we can all say in many circumstances, we've had odors. Odors sometimes produced by us, and odors sometimes produced from the building and the other tenants in the building that we kind of, we want to live our life, and that's it. And the other thing we experience is noises. And we're oversensitized as it is. How many devices does everyone have in front of them? How many ways do people reach you? And so if you can get back to those periods of your life where it's calm, it's quiet, and it's healthy, and then realize, right, that this is what you are used to. It is what you're craving. It is the natural feeling. Now, assure that of the people that are living in that building so that they could go on and live. Not be frustrated, not be dragging at home because the environment they worked in actually depleted their power and their energy, or not come from your house after a poor night's sleep and a grumpy morning because you're invigorated, right? It's that simple. We don't build cabins anymore. Not very often. It's a general statement. For those of you that build cabins, I love you. I love cabins. But at the end of the day, we want to have a conversation where we hear the person next to us, where we enjoy that quinoa or whatever dish that they make, and we sit in the moment. And this is possible, and you don't have to have a surprise bill then at the end of the month that smacks your world and says, oh, you goofed up. Nope, you didn't goof up. You can now live your life.
And you know what? This is exactly expressing what our web company, they did such a phenomenal job to rephrase everything and to make it accessible. We were totally stuck in TikTok. So I like to quote the vision statement. They shrunk it they ask what's your vision, 30-minute elevator speech. They made it 10 seconds short, and it hits the nail on the head. It says our vision is to make a world where every building supports the health of people and planet. And that's what you just expressed, right? That desire and that connection, and we're all connected in that desire. I was just when I read that yesterday, I was like, wow, that's exactly it. And how do we do this? We do this by making passive the zero carbon building standard of everything.
Fantastic. And I think definitely we want to show the new website. We want everyone to feel that energy and see some of those words that were so cleverly crafted. But how about we say hello to a few people tuning in today? We have some fans out there for sure. Etienne, good to see you. Hi from Minnesota. He says, you're amazing. Thank you for helping the USA build better. See you in Chicago this fall.
Obviously, Katrin and Jennifer know Etienne. What you guys don't know is he actually left Switzerland and moved to Chicago because PHIUS is in Chicago, right? To leave Switzerland to come and live in Chicago and be closer to PHIUS, what a gift. And then he enjoyed it so much that he's tuning in here today. I'm winking at you, brother.
Well, he's in Minnesota right now. I think he moved even deeper into the Midwest, but yep.
God
Yeah,
love
he
him.
understands the climate goals and how to
Oh,
fix them.
yeah.
Alexandre, right? Alexandre says the technologies are there indeed, and the recipe is known. Go PHIUS. Love it.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you, brother.
And we have a message from our friend Jerry from the West Coast. Good morning, folks. Love Passive House.
And go ahead, Jennifer.
He's a big fan, so I'm excited to have him on today, joining us and really celebrating this, because so much of what we talk about is how the way, not just what we're building, but the way in which we're building and how critical that is for the occupants of our homes and buildings.
There's a similarity here that I don't know if everyone will get. So, Jerry, you have a shared passion on more than two fronts with Katrin. So one of your strengths, besides being an architect that people often forget, is you have a passion for panelized. And Jerry is a panelized machine, and he shares one of your passions. He's worked to create the zero code in Ireland, his homeland, right? So the two of you, you both understand what performance is about, and you also understand the quality and education that's needed, community by community, and the fact that we need to teach that and share that. You two are very similar souls.
Thank you.
And consistent messaging. You both believe in consistent messaging, which is great. That's what it's all about. And here's another person weighing in. This is actually Derek Coburn. I believe he's joining us from Asia. In one of his other messages, he was saying he's staying up as late as he possibly can to join us in this show today.
Yeah, so I forget what city he's at in China, but interesting enough, Derek, the Developer Summit is really perfect for your network, because we all realize how we build here in North America. If we just take that, for example, China builds 24 hours a day. They don't stop their cycle. They keep building. And I've been able to have Zoom calls with him where he stands on his balcony and he shows me a building, and 3 days later the building is 8 stories higher. So they try to limit the drilling in the night hours, but it's progression based, because they know they need housing. Well, imagine if we knew we need housing, right? Huh. Okay. And they apply that data into implementing it. And they also have energy concerns, right, with the populace they have. And so in order to maximize the materials you're using for the benefit of people, you have to come to the Developer Summit, and you have to take the keys and start using it right now. You're already a day late. You should have started yesterday.
Well, that's why we have the summit coming up in just a few days. So let's just flash a few more of these comments and we'll talk about what we have to look forward to. So Jana Alampi, you rock, Katrin, which is awesome. Christina Abman, glad to be part of the journey. Sounds like she may know you. And we have Buzz tuning in.
All right, Buzz. Happy Friday, y'all. Yeah, and Jana does those commissioning of the buildings. She's like one of like 3 people in Iowa. Jana, we're trying to have a lot of competition for you. So you're a great leader in the programs that you do as an architect as well. And that's why we spawn those voices to get out there farther, because Katrin has this magic book, and that is all the pre-certified buildings that are out there. And that list keeps turning page after page. There's constant pre-certified. So what that tells us is that there's more people that have to be trained, and there's more people that have to be trained to catch up with the workflow that is flooding your way.
And that is totally true. Like the raters and the verifiers, that's starting to be the bottleneck right now, which sounds like a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing, because that is the same progression that we've seen with all the other trainings. We trained a whole bunch of CPHCs, and then they ran into the problem with the builders. They didn't know what they were talking about, and they gave them like giant bids, and that didn't work. So we had to train the builders. They couldn't find the builders who knew what they were asking for. So now we've trained a whole bunch of builders, and now the builders are starting to pump out the buildings and the houses. And now they're running into the next kind of like roadblock, not enough raters and verifiers. So if I can like make a plug for one of those career path, Mark, that you mentioned earlier, we need raters and verifiers, and that's actually really cool stuff to do. You get to like do all the testing and having all the really cool equipment to check if the building actually lives up to what it claims and what it promises. So it's a fun job.
In the chat, Katrin, the career path is important because there's people trying to figure out where they're going. In the chat later, I'll add, of course, Rob Hoskins out of Pittsburgh has been on the show. He's a great third-party expert. Obviously, Emily Rea, Lindsay Elton doing the work in Chicago and Michigan.
Yeah, kick butt. They're awesome.
They're awesome, right? And here's the other part. And Jennifer, you know this. This is why we're so excited on Fridays. Is each of these people we mentioned, they are reachable. They're inclusive, and they invite you to learn from them. When they go and test a building, when they go and model something, when they go and do the work that says this data is right and this is why it's working, and they're supporting the team, they're actually inclusive to bring you aboard so that you can walk in those steps and realize how exciting it is. If you're very introverted and you want to be on your computer and you want to find out every little possible thing and make it perfect, there's endless jobs for you. If you're extroverted and you want to go out and train and figure out what problems are and bring those solutions for PHIUS over, endless jobs for you. Literally endless.
There is. So let's show some of this. Maybe let's take a look and bring up this fabulous new website that we're talking about. There we go.
Yeah, cheers.
And I love this. 0 is the goal, PHIUS is the means. Fantastic.
You can't say it any more poignant, right? Like, this is it.
Jennifer, that's the new t-shirt, right? Like, so Katrin, we always make a running joke. The audience knows it, but it's not a joke. It's seriousness. We always look for messaging. And then when it's good messaging, because sometimes messaging is not good, right? We know what bad messaging looks like. And when we hear this, we say, that's a t-shirt. And it is a t-shirt. By the way, the last message that you used to have, just to recycle old content, because that's how we got to today. The last message was PHIUS is the fastest way to 0, right? And that got us to where we are today. And now we're here. It's beautiful.
Love it. So let's take a look at the Developers Summit, and maybe you can talk us through the lineup and some of the folks that we can expect to see there.
Yeah, sure. So really super excited because the Developer Summit is really spanning the entire spectrum of development. So we have different constituents. Like some of our constituents are more focused on the single family home market. And when you get a chance to browse the website, you'll see a lot of like ridiculously beautiful like single family homes. I was walking through the website yesterday. I'm like, I want one of those. Like, when do I get to build the next one for myself? You know, and they're just so beautiful. They sit so snuggly in their environment, and you can almost like feel like they're good for the planet. You know, it's like totally awesome. So the first day is focusing on single family townhome, our new prescriptive certification path that is supposed to help to keep the initial kind of like planning costs a little lower, because for single family, that's a big chunk. Multifamily buildings, they always have an envelope consultant. They can absorb those like more in detail planning costs for like a serious energy model, but single family can't. So for many, many years, people have been asking for this prescriptive path to make that cost go down a little bit. And that doesn't mean that the CPHC is no longer needed. The CPHC is still needed. But now it's much easier. We have a very simple tool. We call it a snapshot. There's a calculator on the website. You can get your targets very quickly. So we're hoping to discuss how that new certification path will help to spur more development, faster development. There are other strategies to make the developing of single-family homes easier and bring the cost down. We're looking at pre-certifying a factory, basically like taking the panel, pre-certify it in the anticipated settings and specific kind of like climates. If they export, if they're only local, then that's easy. And that should help to also shorten the extensive like certification process where we're baking it into the product of the factory. So we will have a presentation on that one.
Did you see Jennifer's face when you said that right there? It was like the Holy Grail just got unveiled. Beautiful words.
I mean, it's bringing it all together. So can you tell us a little bit more about this? Can we start buying these now?
Well, yeah, like if you have a factory design, which I have a couple of friends who do, and I'm trying to get them to like build them now. But right now, obviously, everything is really expensive and whatever supply chain. But there's also a lot of money coming down from the feds, and states are very interested in boosting their economy with these new technologies. So I think we will see these factories go in very soon to help states to show leadership in the energy transition. Because again, as we talked about previously, the building becomes part of the critical new energy infrastructure. And for that, they need to deploy these building shells fast with like built-in safe quality assurance so that they get the assurance that the building will perform at the level that we promised them to get like their money back out to make it a profitable proposition. So that's day one. On day two, we're going to go into multifamily and high rise. So we have the 425 Grand Concourse, right now the tallest certified project with 26 stories. And we have a mid-rise. And we have a low rise, and they are distributed throughout various different climate zones, right? Like we have the entire span. We go from Seattle to Chicago to New York. So we can demonstrate also how that affects the development. And also we have affordable and market rate. And we have that actually, I think on the first day, that's the same case too. Yeah, we have affordable and market rate. So we show that it works in both ways. On day three, it gets really exciting because at that point, we're going to look at like financing options, because that has been somewhat the biggest hurdle in the past, that people weren't sure, how am I going to finance my 1 to 3% additional cost? Where's this coming from? We're going to talk about these different business models of like maybe adding to the developer role, the ESCO energy services model. But even aside from that, we have some really cool new financing products on the market. Fannie Mae certified the first project under their new green building program, and it happens to be a PHIUS project out in Seattle, market rate, super awesome. And we have a new financing model that's brand new in the market. It's proposing to take a stabilized market rate passive project, which we know is durable. People love it. They don't have high turnover. They lease earlier. It's actually really great investment. They're taking it public. They're making it into an IPO. And this is where, again, comes full circle, where people like retirement funds can start to invest. Like this is Jeremy Rifkin's core message. Like the biggest capital out there that seeks new investment opportunity other than fossil fuels are retirement funds. Hello. So there's tons of money out there for this. And this is where it all comes full circle. And hopefully on day three, we'll have everybody totally psyched and a whole bunch of more repeat offender developers join us. So such as John Ritchie out in Seattle, right? He's only doing passive market rate. He totally got it down.
it's a dynamic shift that's happening. You mentioned it earlier. I'm glad you covered it again in the financial sector, right? It's a way to protect that investment, and it's a way to ensure that a lot of times when the developers were moving forward with buildings before, it was based on a certain lifespan of the building, but that part of the equation was kind of left off. However, because PHIUS has a living document, right? You guys take that data and adapt it. You take the climate, you adapt it. You influence codes that help adapt it from the DOE forward. Now we have, let's call it a safe place, right? Where there's an assurance that this building, because of its durability and because of limiting the risks versus not knowing risks,
Exactly.
that's a factor. I mean, good God. Like,
It's beautiful. It's just like gorgeous. It's like, of course, we needed this like quality assurance risk mitigation tool that you can trust and you know is accurate. Once you have it, it's like, why didn't we do this in the first place?
Yeah.
But in all fairness, this was made possible by the emergence of high performance computing. We could have not been able to create these really highly complex standards that take into account all these different factors like climate and cost and building size. That was possible because we have access to high performance computing now.
Right.
You guys have no idea how many hours of like cloud computing went into these standard developments, but it's so cool to see the results and then also seeing the measured results. I'm not just telling you this is an accurate tool. We have measured results and they come in at like plus minus 7% right now. We're trying to get better. I talked about the feedback loop earlier. We really want to get within 5%. And once we can show and prove that the tool is on average like plus minus 5%, then you can mitigate the outliers, the risk differently through contracts, through whatever. But at that point, we really, really have the tool we need to make this happen and power that transition.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Well, I was going to just flash a comment from someone we mentioned earlier, Rob Hoskin, who sums it all up perfectly. A client who can afford to do just about anything with their house lit up when I suggested adding filtered fresh air with an ERV yesterday. I mean, that just sums it up right there in terms of air quality and the value and the comfort and the quiet and everything else that you're describing.
Durability, it's like, yeah, it's just beautiful.
So we've changed the language a lot in the last 20 years. Green and sustainable were still a little bit foofy, right? Let's say, or sometimes those conversations drove people away or they confused people or scared people. And then I heard these acronyms, comparisons of homes and our buildings to miles per gallon. And I was like, oh, okay, I can get behind this. Performance, great. And my favorite one is, again, kind of what you brought up now, and it's that comparison to our car market. Cars are crash tested. We figure out where they're going to break, how we're going to get injured when they do crash. And guess what? We don't talk about our building failures. We always try to cover up and run from the warranty and the testing. And a car is 20 to 80,000. Let's just give that range. Is a house 20 to 80,000? Well, not yet. But that testing and that warranty, aren't you expecting that? I know you are. You're not going to buy food from a restaurant if the cook hasn't put it in his mouth. You're not going to take the suggestion of a staff that hasn't tasted it, tested it, and known that this is the best recipe out there. PHIUS is the best recipe out there. It's crash tested, and your real estate developers are going to go gaga. They're going to become CPHCs, and that's when I'm going to do the happy dance.
Well, they don't have to do the full deal, right? They just need to, they only need to know the tip of the iceberg. So don't scare them. They don't have to run energy models. Maybe if they want to use it for their financial projections, but they can also just ask the CPHC for the output and be done.
Right.
And
but it is surprising right? When you talk to people, right, and they're like, I want to build a passive house, and you ask them what they've known, and they're like, oh, I've already done the training. I'm already, like Jennifer, I tell you, they know the color of their car. They know the size of their tires, and they know the music they're going to put in it. They sing the song of joy because they already feel like they're in a house, in a building that performs to the PHIUS level.
Think about, again, going back to the importance of language. I mean, look what happened in the used car industry. They completely changed the language, and then it became pre-owned, right? And then it became certified pre-owned. People start believing that. They look for that. They seek that out. They're more confident in purchasing those certified pre-owned cars. Wouldn't they be more confident in purchasing a certified pre-owned home?
Yep. Absolutely.
And that's funny. That touched on my favorite thing. A lot of times people think this is for new construction, right? Because we said that it's pre-certified and it's planned. Don't think that you're left out. The existing building market, if you're a developer, if you're a contractor, if you're an architect, and you want a list of never-ending work that you could pass on to the next generation in your family to take over, go after the existing building market and take that building stock. You want to talk about carbon, right? Take that embodied carbon of those buildings and apply the operational carbon of PHIUS, and you've got an investment that pays.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Great closing remark, Mark.
Yeah, so before we do close it out, because can you believe, I mean, time is just flying by. We've shared so many nuggets today. But Mark, before we close it out, can you want to share a few upcoming events that we have coming up next week? I know Katrin might be really excited to hear about them too.
Sure. So Isabel is coming forward next week. We're going to talk about alternative ways to use land, alternative ways to share housing, and alternative sizes of buildings. So a tiny good thing is next week, and you're going to enjoy the words from her. And then the week after, we have Eric from Mechanical Hub, and I'll tell you what, the people that understand performance and the people that understand efficiency, they are in the mechanical mindset. They already leave their mark on the planet by having the short pipes, the right size pipes, everything conditioned for your benefit. And Eric is a showstopper, and we're thrilled to have the mechanical side brought forward. So there's a never-ending amount of good things coming, but that link that Jennifer has put out there, whether you're there for one day, right? Maybe you're in a single family market, then go on the 26th. If you're into the multifamily and multi-unit, go on the 27th. If you want to know financing, because you do, go on the 28th. And if you want the salad, the soup, the appetizer, the meal, the coffee, and the dessert, and the wobbly pops after, get the whole conference, and spring for someone else in your network to join you, because it's your duty to share that with your community. They already put on the event. They already have the examples. It's your duty to learn and take it to your community and thrive.
And that's not it, because right after this, we have PHIUSCon coming back in October in person. So that's super exciting. And we can put some links in the show notes for that event as well. It's nonstop action with this group.
Back in Chicago, home game.
Fantastic, fantastic. And before we leave, Katrin, can you leave just one thing with the group? If there's just one thing that we can all do to really change the place that we're living in, or one story that you want to share with the group, what's an easy step for everybody to really be part of this inclusive group?
Uh-oh. Do you still have me?
We do. Are you there?
Sorry. For some reason,
I think maybe one thing might be the example, right? So creating an example and sharing education. You've done that, Katrin. You've done that.
Get your butt into your own passive house, or passive apartment, like as soon as you can. That's the best thing for the planet you can do.
There you have it. There you have it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm so sorry for all this. This is like really annoying.
Oh, you're good. You're good. It's been really fun. Have a great weekend, everybody. There will not be Coffee with Dave tomorrow, but we do have Amy Marks coming back on Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern. That's always a great show. So we look forward to you all joining us then.
Sounds great. Thank you guys. It was fun. Bye.